This is Gabriel Messuti, and you're listening to Learn, Unlearn, Optimize.
Hey, everybody. What's up, man? This is Gabriel Messuti, and I'm here with my buddy, Michael Pellegrino. And we decided to do a series on nutrition. Mike is an integrated health coach. He's been a big influence in my life with helping me heal myself through my experience with cancer and my nutrition and things like that. And we wanted to set a non-dogmatic and what would you say, Mike, a non-like specific diet. So like we wanted to get into the general overall facts of like food and nutrition.
We're not here to proselytize,
Yeah. Or preach to anybody, but there's a lot of holes in my game that Michael always fills. So rather than just talking to Michael one-on-one, we figured it'd be awesome to share this information with the world. So, Mike, where do you want to start? But this is the fundamentals of food, huh?
Yeah, I figured let's go to like the beginning, the baseline, square one,
yeah,
0.0, 0.1, so that we can begin to delve into this more as we're having other future conversations. We're able to have a point of reference, It's always good to start with a bigger picture of something, get a good idea of what that's all about, and then we can begin to digest it, break it down bit by bit by bit, and start to see how it all, is arranged and how they all relate to one another, the different principles, the different details. Because I find that that's something that's really big in our world now, is that we don't approach things with that more holistic or integrative perspective. Science has become very reductionistic. We're just breaking things down too much. So
cool.
Without understanding the interconnectedness between them. So
awesome.
Yeah, let's start with the wholeness of it all, which is, in terms of nutrition and what we need to be properly nourished. We have to distinguish, well, what is food? What is whole food? What is true food?
Yeah.
Or real food? So that's what we're gonna get into.
Great, man. I'm so excited for this. Go ahead, brother.
Okay, so there's so many questions why, what is true food, whole food, real food? Why do we want to eat those foods? It's like, well, why would I want to eat a real food?
Yeah.
Why would I want to do that? So what exactly is true food, real food? It is whole food. And what exactly is whole food? Whole food is literally food in its original form that nature has provided us.
Okay.
So it has its own history to it. It has its own life forms. And so this is a life form, that has evolved, in time and space through time there. And it has a history, it has a knowledge to it, it has information, and it has a life energy to it.
Yeah.
And yes, it is made up of different individual components that we can call like proteins, carbs, fats. And most of us are very familiar with those three macronutrients.
Mm-hmm.
But food is more than just those macronutrients. It's all of those elements and constituents that are necessary not only to feed our body, but really for that life form to thrive within its own environment.
Mm-hmm.
So that it can continue to grow and pass on its, genetics and its life energy to its future and be able to, sustainably thrive.
Okay.
Throughout time. So ultimately what we want to do is be able to consume this whole food and incorporate it into our own being so that we can be whole. So really that's the essence, is like, if you want to be whole, you need to eat whole foods.
Okay.
Not fractionated foods. And so at the end of the day, really it comes down to this principle of eat or be eaten.
Okay.
That's just how energy works, how life energy works. Matter, as the old principle of law of thermodynamics about energy cannot be created or destroyed, just transferred.
Yeah.
Really, it's about taking energy and transferring it into another form. And so that's what we want to do with good food, with real food.
Okay.
Eat that whole food, break it down through digestion, but also more than just digestion. Like, what does it mean to really eat? Have you really, ate, so to speak? That means you have to digest it, but also means you have to absorb those nutrients, that food.
Mm-hmm.
You have to assimilate it into your tissues and your cells so that it can become you. But it also means that your body has to be able to eliminate those fractions or those parts of that whole food that don't serve you at this time, or that maybe don't have a use for you. So then you have to eliminate that. So that's that whole process.
Okay.
Basically taking life energy from another organism and incorporating it into your own being.
Awesome.
So that you can promote regeneration and avoid degeneration.
Cool. I'm with it.
So that's it in a nutshell, in a principle form.
Okay. So how do we get into what those foods are?
So
what defines that? Obviously, you said it hasn't been processed.
Yeah. So like, what is it? What does it contain? It's food in its original form. So basically, what are we talking about? We're talking about mostly plants, but of course, animals, they also, eat plants.
Yeah.
And they incorporate that life energy into to make up their own life energy.
Right.
And culturally, historically, we have also eaten animal-based animals,
right,
for food. And again, they're whole beings as well. And so when we eat them as well, we can incorporate that into our own body as long as we have the ability to, again, digest, absorb, and assimilate and eliminate those parts of that food.
Got it.
So, it incorporates all those necessary elements, but it also doesn't incorporate the things that a lot of us men, has added to these foods.
Okay.
All the different man-made chemicals, includes pesticides, herbicides,
preservatives,
additives, colorings. Oh gosh.
Yeah.
It's a huge list of things that are out there. There are numerous chemicals that have just not, been tested for its safety, that are out in the environment. And in the plants primarily are taking that in to their own being,
right.
And it's interfering with their own life energy. That's why, we're constantly having to find new pesticides and herbicides to be spraying onto these plants, because plants no longer have the right vitality.
Right.
We're really destroying the ecosystem. And so the animals too, especially including ourselves, we bioaccumulate a lot of these toxins and other chemicals and preservatives into our own being, and they get in the way of our own healing, our own regeneration process.
Yeah.
So we gotta get back to whole food that has lack of those compounds or reduced amounts of it. It's very hard, to be honest, to have, we're not in need anymore to get back to that purity anymore. It's almost impossible.
Does a lot of the plants lack of vitality, Mike? Does it just come from like pesticides and herbicides and things that are being sprayed or fertilizers put into the ground? Or you think like over farming just in general has a lot to do with it because there's not a lot of nutrients left in the soil?
Exactly. Poor farming, agricultural methods has played a huge role. Demineralization of the soil, also the destruction of the soil organisms.
Yeah.
That plays a huge role. The different, what we call, the whole term we'll call microflora, but basically the micro bacteria and also the yeast, the different mycelium that exists within the soil as well plays just a huge role, in the uptake of essential nutrients, especially those minerals that are present in the soil, to be uptaken into the plant.
Got it.
So the plant, again, it's all about the ecosystem being whole. How does this plant exist in relationship to its environment? How are we existing in relationship to our environment? And then how are all of those constituents within food, how are they, or how do they relate to one another? The different mineral ratios, for instance, within food and also within our own self plays a significant role in how that organism will express itself, how it will function, how
Right.
all of the enzymes that are present in its biochemistry or phytochemistry, how it's able to actually perform, how those enzymes are able to be active. It all
Okay.
depends upon the ratios of those fundamental elements.
So, Mike, to break down what you're saying again,
Hmm.
if I eat a particular food,
Hmm.
I may be able to even digest it, but assimilation, like there's certain things that have to activate from like a chemical standpoint to form a chemical reaction that's going to make it even beneficial for my body. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. So how do you do that? How do you take something from the outside, a food, even if it's a fake food, even if it's a processed food? How do you take that and be able to first digest that,
Right.
which takes energy, it takes your own energy to do that,
Correct.
and absorb and assimilate that. So it requires tremendous amount of life energy. But then if you want to break that down into what are those actual biochemical constituents,
Yeah.
those are enzymes.
But
You
Mike,
know,
I guess what you said was part of my what I just wanted to reiterate. But
yes.
let's say I start the digestive process in order to have like an enzyme be effective in my body. Are you saying that in not all the time or maybe all the time I have to have another component to activate that enzyme so that it's even healthy for my body to have?
So I think what you're saying is like the enzymes, in order for them to have their activity, they need to have something.
Or to even make it like beneficial, like maybe I process it and like get it out of my body, but maybe it didn't have the proper activation because I don't have the other part of the equation to even make it. I ate something, but without I ate A, but without having B in my body. With A, it really doesn't do anything. It's just going through my body.
For sure. Definitely it's the combination of multiple enzymes and systems working together as a
Yeah.
whole system
Wow.
in order for you to, in your system, your body system as a whole, to do what it needs to do.
Yeah.
So all enzymes really require minerals and
Yeah.
vitamins as cofactors, as
Okay.
essential components for that enzyme's activity. And so if you are deficient in a vitamin, in a mineral, those enzymes will be unable uh, to process whatever it's trying to process
Yeah.
in the proper way. So maybe the enzyme's activity is reduced, and it's not able to break something down or to transform
Yeah.
different components in your body into the most efficient way. And so then things start to back up within systems, and then if you're not breaking down something, or you're not being
Yeah.
able to transform something into something else that your body requires,
Yeah.
there's going to be a deficit. And then there's also going to be, because of that equation, there's a deficit in one part of a system. That means that there's going to be an excess in some other part that manifests,
Got it. And
because
that excess
everything
may be
needs to be
toxic.
whole. What's that?
The excess could be toxic, or it could.
Yeah,
Right.
excess is generally toxins, and those toxins can be from the food that we eat, or the chemicals that are in those foods.
Or it
So
could be
again,
like an excess of something that wasn't initially meant to be a toxin. Like I know too much vitamin D could be toxic for the body if you take, right.
right.
So it's something that you took, but there's an excess amount of it, and even though it was something that you thought was healthy for your body, now it's becoming toxic.
Yeah, and if you're deficient in certain nutrients and enzymes, they're underperforming. Now you might actually generate an excess of certain, let's say, stress hormones that are toxic to your body.
All right.
So it's all about that balance of, you know, the it's all about the balance. That's really what it comes down to.
So
Just end it like that.
how does the person that's listening to this, even myself, Mike,
Yeah.
I've spoken to you for a while, so I have a little bit more context. But where do we start? Like, so what do I do with this information right now? Great. You
Okay.
broke down all this information. I know you can go even deeper and into almost another language that I wouldn't understand. But what do we do? What do we do with it? Like, where do we start?
So look at what food is. Is it whole plant-based food in its original form?
Okay.
So that means practically, get to know your farmers. If you're living in those areas, or if you are in a more urban environment,
Yeah.
um, look go to the places that are providing organic foods. That's always a good place. I mean, we have the USDA organic certification. It's an okay certification. It definitely provides us some assurance that the food is in a better state than conventionally grown food with
Yeah.
pesticides and herbicides.
Yeah.
But really the best way is to get to know your farmers. And fortunately, there's a lot of farmer markets, even in urban zones like New York City, that people can go to get to see, where's this food being produced.
Cool.
Yeah, so
I
that's
heard
important.
I heard this one time, Mike, stay on the outer perimeter of the supermarkets for the most part.
Yeah,
In other words, the majority of supermarkets are set up with the fresh produce, meats, and like fresher foods on the perimeter of the supermarket, and the majority of the processed stuff is in the center aisles.
right.
There's like the boxes and the cans and all that stuff. So
Pretty much.
if I'm gonna walk over to Whole Foods right now, or go to the big shop right over here, I'm gonna look to buy as much organic as I can, and that will give me some type of hope that it's without a ton of chemicals, even though it's not always without it. I'm going to look for foods that are in their full form, meaning like a carrot, like literally is a carrot, not something
Very
that
like a carrot.
that's been processed, a potato, fruits, vegetables, things of that nature.
Yes.
Uh, and if I'm going to go into buy chicken or meat, and I'm going to get a protein, we'll get it like in its form, not processed, not ground. Try to get something that's like a fresh, organic, grass-fed cut of meat or cut of chicken or something of that nature. And then the
Yes.
same thing with any types of juices or things like that. I know we could get even so. I can see Mike's wheels spinning, guys, because we go like so deep, and I know like even juices to a certain extent, right? Like the body wasn't made to take all that in without the fiber, without the rest of it. So
Yes.
that isn't a food in its true form. So you got to even be careful with like how much of that you take, because
Right.
like hypothetically, like if I just drink a ton of orange juice, that's a big shock to my system, even if it has some pulp in it, because it's without everything else that nature intended me to eat it with. Once I peel that skin off, right? I peel the skin off,
Yeah.
I eat the orange.
I also, yeah, and I really, and that I want to segue from that into
Yeah.
something that's super important. And when we're talking about like nourishing our body and feeding our body,
Yeah.
really a big part of that is really about feeding that microbiome that exists within primarily our digestive
What's
system.
microbiome, Mike?
So it is the accumulation of all of the different microorganisms, the bacteria, different types of yeast that exist in it's like an ecosystem of different microflora.
I hear a lot of
Your yeast.
people throwing out probiotics a lot, Mike. They just
Yeah,
throw that term out there. Eat this probiotic, do this. Even
right.
right here in this adaptogen tea, my kombucha with probiotic. Is that BS? And I also heard that is probiotic part of this microbiome you're talking about?
It's related. So definitely the probiotics are those bacteria that are a result of a fermentation. So
Yeah.
for instance, you're having a kombucha drink,
Right.
that's a fermented tea. There's sauerkraut, there's kimchi, there's all the yogurts, there's all these fermented foods out there. So basically we're taking real whole food
Yeah.
and we're fermenting them, allowing the bacteria that are inherently exist within that food to start to
Right.
break it down. Instead of us being able to break it down with our own enzymes, we're using bacteria to break that down, which yields numerous different constituents that
Right.
would not be obtained if we just ate it by ourselves. So there's a great benefit in
That
that.
was that A and B equation that I was talking about. I may eat something, but it
Yeah,
doesn't get broken down properly. It'll just pass through my system. So with this
yeah,
microbiome, that's that component that helps for it to be broken down and then assimilated properly.
yeah. And when we feed our body with whole food, with true food,
Yeah.
includes fermented foods, we're feeding this internal environment. And I often think about it like if you look at like a tree, right? And the tree's got its roots that are in the soil out there. Well, in our gut, we have something called microvilli and villi, and literally it it expands our absorption of food by a tremendous amount.
Okay.
And if we didn't have this microvilli, we would not be able to absorb our food pretty much at all.
Okay.
So it really enhances the surface area of our digestive tract, especially the small intestines, primarily, and allows us to absorb a tremendous amount of nutrition from our food. And so we have to think about it as like ourselves, that microvilli are like the roots of like a tree reaching out to the soil. And so what is the soil? The soil is, that food, it's the microbiome, it's all that flora in there. We need to give ourselves food that flows through that system. And then the bacteria in there are beginning to ferment it, to break it down, especially in the large intestines. And that yields a whole bunch of different constituents that informs our body how to be healthy and well.
Mm-hmm.
It helps keep our immune system strong or robust,
Mm-hmm.
and aware of how to fight off what shouldn't be coming in and antagonizing us. So again, principle of eat or be eaten. So if you want to be vital, robust, as an organism and be able to thrive, not just survive, you want to eat whole food that has a lot of vitality, a lot of good quality life energy. Feed your body, feed your microbiome, and it's a synergy
Mike,
between that bacteria in your body.
two things real quick. First,
Yeah.
we had said yogurt. I just want to put a big asterisk next to yogurt, and that's like a whole nother topic. Like, be careful the yogurts that you eat out there, guys. A lot of it's packed with crap. So
Right.
when Mike and I listen back to this, we'll record something else on yogurt. But I think it's Amy's is the brand that we get. Amy's Organic. Stick with that until you hear otherwise. But Amy's Organic, like it actually has like the proper living probiotic or the proper living what do you want to call it, Mike, within it,
The strains of the probiotics,
the strains. It's got over
the
like
cultures.
I forget how many thousands or hundreds of thousands of cultures in it that are alive,
Mm-hmm.
and good for your gut, and it doesn't have the other additives in it that could be detrimental to your gut. So asterisk on yogurt. And like I said, I probably
Remember, most yogurt's dairy, and so
Yeah.
where is dairy coming from? It's coming from an animal. What is that animal? What has that animal been eating?
Yeah.
And when you most people don't realize that when you have something like milk products,
Yeah.
you're not just getting milk from one cow.
Yeah.
That milk is coming from 50 plus cows.
Yeah.
It's all mixed together, homogenized, pasteurized.
Right.
So it really is different than getting fresh squeezed milk from the udder.
Yeah, that, and also all the thickeners, was it carrageenan, and like all the other stuff that they put into it, and the sugars. So you get you may grab this yogurt off the shelf. It's like some BS marketing about probiotic and something on it.
Mm-hmm.
And you look at it and it's got 23 grams of sugar from the artificial fruit that's in it, and a bunch of other additives that have been set to cause cancer. And before you know it, you're doing yourself, back to the second part of what I wanted to reiterate, what you said, Mike, eat or be eaten.
Yes.
And this isn't like, dog eat dog or like kill or be killed. This is, I think, my interpretation, I want to get clear on, is like, I'm either going to eat so I cause my body to regenerate, or I'm going to eat to where I cause my body to eat itself and break down to where I'm in degeneration.
Exactly. That's really what it comes down to. What does
quite
your
literally,
body
maybe
need?
even by a parasite.
What's that?
I said quite literally, maybe even to the extent of, or by a parasite.
Yeah. It becomes very
extreme case.
parasitic.
Yeah.
Like parasitic basically is an entity that is siphoning off your own life energy and bringing you down. It's holding you down.
Right.
And so you can have undigested proteins that make their way into your system and are literally starting to break down your own body's tissues,
right,
and systems, and get in the way of your own healing.
Right.
And so that's why, when I work with people, doing clinical nutrition, I don't just look at what they're eating, but I'm looking at how are their organ systems, working? How vital are they? Are they distressed? Do they need additional support to be able to metabolize what we are feeding our body? I've worked with people who are, they're eating really good food, raw vegan diets, or, super high quality nutrient dense foods. but yet they're not digesting, they're not absorbing, they're not assimilating.
Right.
So they're not getting what they need to sustain themselves, to promote that regeneration process.
So, Mike, just to unpack that a little bit more,
Sure.
what I heard was that sometimes even a protein can become a parasite because the body isn't able to break it down because, like in that, it doesn't have the right parts of the equation that it needs.
Yeah.
And so, parasitic is anything that takes from your regeneration, has your body start to like decompose or like and degenerate.
Yeah, even parasitic, or it becomes antagonistic. So basically, it sets off a whole chain reaction of events that leads to a chronic degeneration,
Got it.
because your body is spending so much of its own life energy trying to protect itself from the inside
Right.
as well as from the outside, that is antagonizing your system.
Right.
So this is all very common, in especially in people with autoimmune related conditions, where their body is literally fighting against itself in a process, in an attempt to fight off other entities that are dislodged, or not dislodged, but lodged within your system.
Now, that's from like there's the other extreme of it where someone may hear they say, "Oh, eat whole foods, stick to the perimeter of the supermarket," like you guys just told me. I'm going to pick up some sushi,
Mm-hmm.
and within that sushi, or within anything that may be uncooked and is raw, are a lot of parasites. And I'm talking like literal parasites now that are like worms or like that look like goldfish flukes within the body.
Yep.
I've had some clients come in here that were actually on flushes from their MDs, from their doctors,
Mm-hmm.
to get these out of their body.
Yes.
And it's like, and I looked at, and then I have some books over here, and I started looking at it, and like some of them look like actual goldfish or like worms within the body. And so there's that extreme to where you get to be really careful of to like what you like. As far, I don't know, I do, at least, Mike, I try to stay away from as much like uncooked fish like that, or uncooked beef, or uncooked.
Yeah, I would suggest that, because again, it comes back to the sourcing.
Right.
Where these organisms are existing. Are they known for carrying parasites? And yeah, I would definitely be cooking that through all the way, for sure.
So I just wanted to be clear that it's not just necessarily chain reaction. We could be talking about a literal parasite that's
Literal, yeah.
eating you from the inside out.
Absolutely.
And then also tricking your system
Mm-hmm.
to think that it needs nutrients that you need, but it's really to feed the parasite so it can take over.
Right. Exactly.
Wild stuff, man. It's like a movie, an alien movie plot.
Yeah, it's that whole entity existing and like trying to like
Exactly.
grab out, and
Yeah.
breaks you down in the process, and that's no way to live. And that's with all of the the dis-ease and disorder many of us are experiencing in this era, and there's always some new diagnosis or term we can throw, label we can throw on it, but essentially it's just that our systems are distressed. They're lacking in the right life energy, in the right nutrition. They're deficient and or toxic. Usually it's a combination of both.
Right.
And we want to get back to supporting that regeneration process. And that means we need to start with feeding ourselves with whole food, with true foods, foods that give us everything that we need to thrive.
Awesome, man.
And that's where it's like food from the earth, food in its natural, original form, the way nature has intended it to be.
Mm-hmm.
Its genetics has not been altered. So I'm really big against GMOs as well, because it's in a science experiment. We don't know exactly what are the ramifications of genetically engineered food on our own biology.
And even that's so tough to find. I just watched this whole documentary on avocados last night, and like all the different breeds of avocados there are now. And like the one that's really being pushed is like, I think the Haas Haas avocado, because it like ships the best, and the majority of the manufacturing, or the majority of the, I should say, the processing, meaning like sorting and shipping and boxing, is set up for this particular dimension. So like that's the one that's ruling the market.
Yeah.
So you're going to
Yeah.
get what you're going to get. It goes deep.
Yeah, and we can even get into also the hybridization of food, even though it's not direct genetic modification on like manipulating the genes through like CRISPR technology. Um, we through many generations have hybridized food so that this whole term, I don't know if you're familiar with heirloom varieties.
Like the heirloom tomato.
Yeah, like heirloom tomatoes, but there are heirloom multiple types of vegetables out there
Okay.
and fruits. And so the variety of different types of an apple or of an orange or of an avocado, it's just, or bananas, whatever it may be,
Yeah.
has come down. Instead of it being like a tree with many roots, those roots have been, or branches, they've been cut off.
Yeah.
And so we're really limiting our access to a variety of different foods, of real foods.
Yeah.
We're becoming more homogenized and less of this, this mix of a variety. And
Another
so
way to
the
say
best
it,
way to feed your body is to eat a variety of foods, because no one food is going
has
to
it all.
provide your body with everything that you need to thrive.
Yeah.
So the best diet is a varied diet,
Yeah.
eating a variety of foods coming from different environments. Um, y- well, I mean, generally, I'm more of a proponent of eating as local as possible.
Yeah.
But you know, with
Absolutely.
our access to a variety of other foods all throughout the world, it's quite easy to,
Yeah.
grab some exotic, acai.
Exactly. Or
um,
even, I was going to make another asterisk to this conversation, Mike, for us
sure.
to touch on, which is the predecessor to Whole Foods, which is like a good water source,
Yes.
right? Like, and like, because and like what's in water and how damaging water could be if it's not, like, if it's not pure, if it's not clean, or especially with rotting pipes, fluoride, et cetera, the toilet paper residue. We could go on and on. We'll do a whole nother episode on water uh, for time purposes.
Mhm.
Sometimes, Mike, I'll grab a glass bottle of like Pellegrino, because I love your last name and I love Pellegrino water, and or something like the Voss or something, but they're from different countries,
Mhm.
and I'll do that on purpose just to like get some different mineral content in my
Yeah.
body, just like take a swing at the
You
fences.
can do
I've
that,
never
or
actually
just
tested it, but
get a Berkey
yeah,
system. That's great. I'm so glad for, this is where I love technology. I love technology for what it does really, really well, and actually enhancing the quality of people's life.
yeah,
And I love systems like this because it really does an excellent job of providing water at such a low cost compared to bottled waters, um, that's super pure and
Well,
clean.
that's a one-off, Mike. I normally
Yeah,
have my 6-stage RO, reverse
yeah,
osmosis. I said like I geek out on water, so we'll do another episode on that. But then
yeah.
I put trace minerals in it, and then
That's
like
cool.
some
Right
sea
on,
salt or Himalayan. But we'll get into all that.
for sure.
So, Mike, you have anything else that you want to wrap this up with, or is there anything else you wanted to discuss during this?
Yeah, I want to add one thing about with food, and that we need to, food is another entity, just like you are an entity and I'm an entity, and you and I are having a relationship.
Yeah,
We need to develop a healthy relationship with food, rather than seeing food in this more, let's say, pervasive way, where we're using it as sensation play for our two main senses, mostly your sense of smell and your sense of taste.
kind of
That's
like
how we are relating to food, is through this sense play. And we
interesting.
want to really get away from, not exclude it, right? Because that's not good. We want to be integral. We want to definitely have food taste good and smell good, but we also have to move beyond it just being about that. It
Got it.
needs to be a whole experience.
A holistic
So
relationship.
yeah, when we're eating, we want to eat whole food with good company, with people that we enjoy.
Yeah.
We want to chew that food well. We want to taste it. We really want to have an experience with it, not just gobble it down super
Right.
quickly.
Right.
And so, make it a whole experience, something that where you eat and you feel satisfied. Feel satisfied not only here, but you feel satisfied here, where when you eat, you don't feel lethargic, you don't
Yeah.
feel fatigued,
Yeah.
you don't feel bloated or reflux, indigestion, but you feel satisfied. You feel that that is giving you what you need to have vital energy.
That's so interesting, Mike. So it's similar to like what I just heard was, gosh, if I'm in a toxic relationship, or a relationship, let's say that's just about sex, or a
Mm.
relationship where the other person isn't healthy for me and I feel drained, the
Yeah.
same thing is true with food. Like it should be a completely holistic, nourishing experience, not just something that I turn to for pleasure, or like alcohol to alleviate a problem, or to like lose my problems in. And really, there's an awareness that comes with that. Uh, like a visceral awareness of really taking an inventory on how do I feel after are you crashing just because it's 4 p.m. and you're tired,
Hmm.
or are you crashing because maybe you just had like a bunch of carbs, or you ate something that doesn't really sit well with your body, and it's a lot of energy for the body to digest, assimilate, process, eliminate everything you just went over. And
Right.
because of all that energy that's required, your body's crashing rather than putting you in a regenerative, energetic state, like a toxic person or like a
Yeah.
relationship that may not serve you.
As the old saying goes, eat to live, not live to eat. And that's where it needs to be about. Now, granted, I'm not saying to get neurotic about eating,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that, because there are people who go that side of the spectrum.
Right.
I've worked with them. There's some people who just eat whatever the heck they want. They don't care. And then
Yeah.
there's people who are super neurotic about what they eat and are very specific.
It's crazy.
And that's not good either. Again, you don't want to be on the extremes. You
Yeah.
want to find the balance.
Yeah. Agreed.
So if you have, there's some fun event, a wedding, some birthday celebration, there's a unhealthy food there. Again, food is part of it's a social experience.
Yeah.
So have a little bit of, what brings you true pleasure. But when you're having it, truly enjoy it. Have a wonderful relationship with that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
1,000%. That makes a lot of
Yeah.
sense. Let it be the exception. Let
Healthy
the splurging.
relationships.
Yeah. Healthy
That's what it's about.
relationship. That's awesome, man. That was really cool, Mike. You've probably told me that a bunch of times, but today that landed for me. I heard it differently.
Yes.
Hey, so next episode, Mike, you said we're going to get into just to our listeners, we're going to get into the constituents of food, of
Yeah,
whole
I would
food.
like to do that. So now that we've got this big picture idea of, okay, what is food, what's not food, let's examine, what are the those building blocks of food? What is that made up of? And understand why they're all necessary for the body, and what types of, there's different types of proteins, different types of carbs, different types of fats. And we're
Okay,
going
so
to
you're
get into,
talking about minerals, carbohydrates, fats, proteins, even how the gut biome breaks down that you were talking about. We'll get more into depth. We'll do an episode just on each one of those that people can go back and start to get some more. This was just like a broad overview of context. So we can get into
exactly,
that. Cool,
exactly.
man. Awesome, Mike.
Yes.
This was great, dude.
Thank you. Yeah, it was
Thank you.
awesome. I always love talking with you.
All right, guys. We'll see you on the next one. We'll be recording next Monday, and we'll be bringing these to you guys weekly. Thanks so much.